This is BCW Tetanus Elena. Her bar name is Bianca. She is a 3-year-old mare that will be going up for sale at the annual Feather River College auction this upcoming spring in 2023. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing loping green horses. So particularly how to ask for the first time, getting them soft and moving off of your leg and upward and downward transitions, some exercises that I really like using, and also some common mistakes to be aware of and how to fix those. So the way that our colts are started here, they're started in a round pen setting. They are very much asked, the first thing that they're really asked to do is to move off of your leg. And it's light pressure, light flapping, or a squeeze. And the minute that they give you, you need that immediate release to make that feel really good and reinforce that for the next time you ask. And often with really green horses especially, you are kind of in a pendulum state where you're not picking up on their face because they don't know what that means yet, and you are asking for confidence and traveling outwards and upward transitions and kind of sacrificing direction. And I kind of just label it as like all gas, no brakes. And if they take off and if they start loping out and do like go way harder than you necessarily wanted them, you kind of just need to sit tight and you redirect if you need to kind of like pull them and like get their hindquarters and then let them travel out again. And just sit tight, no big deal. Be a lot more confident than you actually feel. Fake it till you make it. And you are really trying your hardest not to break them down more than you actually need to. You don't ever stop them. You don't want to shut down that forward motion. If you have to redirect it for your own safety, for people around you, whatever. But the primary goal is to just get them traveling out when you ask and to be soft. And then as you continue, you add in more rein to foot and brakes and all of these other different things. But I just want to say that it really is, it's just inherently sketchy in the beginning, and that's how it has to be. But once you get your horses a little bit finished, like this mare is and the rest of the colts, now you need to start upping your expectations. And now they need to have good rein to foot connection. They need to be able to have brakes. They need to be able to lope when you ask. And I guess I have my own little pre-flight checklist, if you will. Whenever I get a new colt or we swap or something, we're doing peer evaluations, I have a list of things that I am looking for before I even put my foot in the stirrup. So the first thing I want to point out with this mare, she's a 3-year-old. She's been ridden pretty extensively, and she's got a little bit of a quirk with getting into the lope. And if you look right here, she's trotting, she bobs her head. I'm asking for the extended trotting, and then she throws her head a couple times, and then finally as she transitions upward into the lope, she picks up her front end and then gets into the lope. And I think that's a sign when you see horses do that, they're pretty weak in that transition where they are having to like heave their front end up to get into that gait. And the head tossing too. She's not back sore, by the way. I actually have checked quite a few times. But she has some things that I have had to work around to get the lope transition good. And so I'm going to go over that as well. So the first primary mistake that I have made and then learned from is forcing them into the lope or forcing them into that next gait. And what I like to do instead now is really work on trickling them into it. And you can do this even from a walk to trot transition, like getting that extended walk, getting that extended trot, getting them where they can carry themselves at that higher cadence just below the next upward gait transition. And that is super important, and I put a lot of emphasis on that now. And so you can see here we're coming off the rail and we're loping. And she trickled into it nicely. However, she is on the incorrect lead. And she is capable of getting on the correct lead, but it's not exactly dialed in and perfect every time. And there's a few different things that you can do to address this. First off, I just want to make the point that they're not broke horses. I don't necessarily want to introduce them to the same degree of body control as I would a broke or finished horse. I don't really want to necessarily be micromanaging their body the entire time if I don't have to. I kind of want them to learn how to carry themselves on the correct lead, the correct diagonal, by themselves in a straight balanced line before I introduce myself any more than I have to, if that makes sense. So instead of pushing their shoulders and hips in and out as you normally would on a broke horse, it's really my job, and I am working on this, but it really is my job to be structurally stable and balanced on the horse's back. And I have some issues with dropping my shoulders, dropping my legs and hips, and a few little things, little quirks per se. But it is really my job to sit straight, to have even pressure, even leg pressure, even weight in the stirrups, to not be imbalancing the horse while I am trying to teach them straightness and their own balance. And it's hard. It's really difficult. But with getting the correct lead, the best thing that you can do for them, that I firmly believe, is getting them in a straight line. And I'll use the rail a lot. I'll use it as a little bit of a runway. And getting them on the rail, getting them straight, getting them moving, and again, getting that energy and trickling them into it. And naturally, a lot of times, they pick it up themselves and they learn how to do it. And a lot of this is just going to be repetition, honestly. As soon as they give me the right lead, as soon as they're getting off my leg, they're soft, there's no major disobedience, there's no bucking, there's no crawl hopping, there's no head shaking, and they give it to me nicely, I quit on that side. And I say, okay, we can have a break. We can stop, as soon as they die out, stop, give them a rest, or go on to something else. And then if we're working on something and it's just it's the wrong lead, or there's something going on, I don't quit until they give me that desirable behavior. And as soon as they do, they get a break. It's very much make the wrong thing difficult and the right thing easy. And so that's the basic tenet of what I try to do with these horses. And so that segues me into, I have a couple videos of this session, but I worked at getting the correct lead on one particular afternoon for several minutes. We took a couple different passes and she kept getting the wrong lead. And every time she would do it, I did not let off. Normally, as soon as she gives me something and she does it correctly, I really focus on sitting back, taking my legs off. I don't really have a whole lot of rein. She's on a pretty loose rein. It's always swinging around in the wind. But in this case, when she's giving me the wrong lead, instead of kind of letting her travel out of it naturally, I put my legs on and I kind of drive her into a circle, and it's going to naturally be uncomfortable for them if she's turning to the right per se and she is on that outside lead. It's not going to be comfortable for her. She's not going to be having a good time with it, and you can really drive them into that. And then the minute that they get the correct lead on that correct bend, then let off, make it easy, and give them a break. So the next point I wanted to just make was rein to foot connection. A lot of times when loping, you end up just sacrificing a little bit of that softness in exchange for getting them off your leg. And the exercises that I really like to use are serpentines, circling. I want them to be able to perfect circle off of my rein aids and off of my leg. I want them to be able to bend off of my leg. I do have a little bit more of an English background, so some of that is just kind of what I'm used to. I want to be able to kind of squeeze a rein and they're following that, or I want to be able to I want them to, curve nicely around my leg. But I also recently have really been enjoying using square turns and just 90-degree angle. You're using direct and indirect rein. You're using that outside rein to help guide them. And I really like that. And ultimately, softness starts on the ground. When I flex them, every time I get on a horse, I'm flexing just in a halter, in like a rope halter. As soon as I pick up, I kind of want them following that feel. And these horses are old enough now that if I'm picking up, I want them to give me their nose. And if not, like, I will pop them or give like a little jerk and then have them flex all the way, and then give them a break and then ask again. And I do that until they get to the degree of softness that I like, and then they get a rest and we're done for the day. So the last point, the last common mistake that I would like to kind of include in here is when I see people introducing their horse to stops too fast, and I haven't introduced this mare to stops because we have spent so much time building up this forward momentum. I don't want to shut it down. And we're trying to get it more consistent and everything before I do that. And then additionally, I'm not at a point where I'm happy with the softness of her backup. And when she starts stopping, I want her to be able to be prepared to immediately go into a backup. I want all of that dialed in and to really be able to put the pieces together. And I already have the habit. She stops off of rein and voice cues. And whenever we do, we go from like a lope to a trot to a walk to a stop. Almost immediate, every time we stop, I make her back up. And I don't let her walk out of that stop. I'm very much in the habit of having her back up and then bend around and then go the other direction so that she learns to respect that. And I just think it's such a mistake to be introducing those young horses that don't have all of the, that don't necessarily have the knowledge. They don't have all the pieces there. And it's not fair to them, because they're so young, and for longevity's sake, for their bodies, you don't really need to be teaching them that young and then pressing that button over and over and over again. But then also, they just don't have all the pieces. There's so many things to work on to get their bodies and their body mechanics balanced and strong and correct before you start introducing a maneuver that is that high level. And I really think that that's a mistake. When I have seen that, I really caution against doing that and really taking your time, and also understanding that, in jumping, a lot of times we say a horse only has so many jumps in them. There's only so many impacts. There's only so many, there's only so many matches that they have, and you're burning matches every time you do it. And so it's very mindful for, in the Western world, when you're doing these really tight circles, when you're doing these stops, doing these spins, whatever, your horse only has so many of them in their body. And you're burning matches, even when you're teaching them. And so taking it slow, making sure that you have everything else correct up to that point is going to set them up for success. And it's also not going to create other issues. And from stopping a horse too fast, it can confuse them. It can be very confusing for them, and they get mixed up and lost in communication, and it starts impacting, just how you ride and like how you do flat work otherwise in the arena. And so very important, just a little spiel at the end of this, something that I have thought about a lot and that I'm very mindful of, is just getting a soft downward transition and then slowly building that into a stop. That's super important. Make sure that you have everything else before you start doing something that high level. So yeah, thank you for watching.